Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of Schmurz Day, November 30th, 2020. On the show today, news and listener questions. And in our main segment, Jim finishes the history of Disney's Port Orleans and Dixie Landings resorts and how certain Imagineers tried to steer the company away from using Song of the South as the inspiration for Splash Mountain. Let's get started by bringing in the man who threw a boomerang when he was a child. It never came back, and now he lives in constant fear. It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
Len, you understand that a boomerang that you throw that doesn't come back is technically a stick.
A stick, exactly.
So yes, I am frightened of a stick. I don't want to talk about it, all right? It's great childhood scarring event. And
I'm sorry to bring it up. I know you've been going through therapy a lot for that.
There we go.
Jim, let's do a quick shout out to subscribers over at disneydish.bandcamp.com. Thanks to new subscribers Connor Pinks, Fred in Belgium, hello Fred, and Wayne B, and longtime subscribers Mindy W, Rich G, and Emily K. Jim, these folks are all past winners of the Balderdash Cup competition, the annual award given to Adventurer of the Year at Disney's Adventurers Club. In fact, the giant statue of Zeus with a fishing rod circulates among their homes each year, arriving just before Christmas, so it can be festively decorated. True story.
I miss the Adventurers Club. I know we'll be talking about Joe Rohde later in the show, but
that's why I did it. Yep.
There we go. Okay. So
All right. Let's do the news then, Jim. Folks, the Disney Dish News is brought to you by Storybook Destinations, trusted travel partner of the Disney Dish Podcast. For a worry-free travel experience every time, book online at storybookedestinations.com. Ooh, do you notice I added the little pause for suspense right there?
There we go.
Keeps people engaged. All right, Jim, you mentioned the big news of last week. Joe Rohde, the legendary Imagineer for Walt Disney, announced his retirement this coming January 4th, 2021. I think we've mentioned Joe's work on here many times. We are all huge fans, but just to sum up his career, we'll probably have to do an entire show on this. We should do a Joe Rohde show.
I agree.
But he was one of the second generation of theme park Imagineers. He started in Epcot, doing painting for the Mexico Pavilion. He also worked on the Captain EO 3D film and the Norway Pavilion before doing the Adventurers Club at Pleasure Island. And I guess this was the first thing I really knew. Like, the Adventurers Club was one of those things that after Epcot, outside of a theme park, was one of those things that really, to me, screamed Disney-level theming, even though it was in Pleasure Island. I mean, Pleasure Island had a bunch of clubs, but the Adventurers Club was the most Disney thing in Pleasure Island.
Oh, absolutely. And I still remember the night my ex-wife, Michelle, and I were there with Alice. Alice was just about 3 or 4 months old at that point, and we had brought her by because we were friendly with the cast of the Adventurers Club, and they wanted to see Alice. And as we're there in the little alcove at the bottom of the stairs, who comes down the stairs but Joe Rohde, literally pointing out, like, okay, I got that piece at a swap meet, and I got that's from my own personal collection, and that
stole that in Peru. I mean, I got that in Peru. Yeah.
But the great part was Joe came down the stairs, saw Alice, and evidently his own son was the same age, and he just basically grabbed Alice and took her with him through the rest of the tour of the club. And it was just sort of like, yes, I have my baby associate with me, and let me show it the rest of the artifacts. But he was a great guy. It still is.
Yeah, so. It still is. And I think I've met Joe for the first time like 17 times in a row. Like, every time I meet him, I have to reintroduce myself. And but my Joe Rohde moment, we'll talk about another show, was doing the Wild Africa Trek. At Animal Kingdom the day it opened. He was there for that. Among his other things, Aulani in Hawaii, which is Disney's best resort by a wide margin. Obviously, the crowning achievement of his career is Disney's Animal Kingdom, which opened in 1998. It's hard to overstate his impact on the Animal Kingdom. Pretty much everywhere you go is basically Joe Rohde's head. Yeah, it's interesting because there's a we're on the third generation, which is the third or fourth generation of
I would actually say we are now in our fourth generation. You got to remember, one of the last things that Joe worked on was Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. And Joe always kept moving forward, always keeps moving forward. And he was talking about how when it came to, for example, the lobby at Mission Breakout, that, remember how Disneyland, the original Disneyland, had been set up with a filmmaker's language. You had long shots, you had close-ups, that sort of thing. And Joe was talking about with Mission Breakout that this was the first attraction that they designed from a gamer's style of storytelling, as in
Oh, interesting.
360 storytelling. So there were, items above you, behind you, beside you. So you would discover them that way. And I just loved the fact that here was this guy, a contemporary of mine in his 60s, but it was, it's like, okay, we got to do these attractions for the next generation. And that's gamers and, families that game together. So he never rested on his laurels, so to speak.
That's fantastic. So who's left from, which Imagineers are left that worked on Epcot that are still with the company?
Kevin Rafferty supposedly retired last year. Remember, he published his memoirs, my Magic Journey, my 40 years at Imagineering. Tony Baxter went into semi-retirement back in February 2013. My understanding is he still comes into Imagineering once a week, and it's kind of the Mark Davis deal. He's consulting, but not necessarily there day to day. Tom Fitzgerald, this year is his 41st year with the company, still there. And Scott Trowbridge just earlier this month received a Lifetime Achievement Award from Thea. So you still got some of the Epcot vets in there. But obviously, again, we're facing kind of an interesting time when it comes to Epcot.
That's true. It's a good point.
Yep.
In other news, Jim, park hopping returns to Walt Disney World January 1st. You won't need a reservation to hop to subsequent parks. The one thing of note is that if you hop to the studios, you won't be able to get a boarding group for Rise of the Resistance because it requires a park reservation in the system to be eligible for that. So you and I talked about this on a show a couple of weeks ago. We'd heard from someone in the park reservations group that they were working on this. It looks like they figured out what needed to be done, so that's good.
Not a coincidence that they're rolling it out in January. In theory, the holiday crowds go away, and it's like, okay, so we have a little breathing space, and let's see if we can actually make this work. So.
And to your point, it helps out with the let's go to have dinner in Epcot plan,
absolutely.
Right? So,
No, totally part of the plan.
The other big news, and I think this is in terms of favorite news for the week, it's this. The walkway between the Grand Floridian and the Magic Kingdom has now opened to Jim.
And you've been following this project very closely for months now. So
since the day the Grand Floridian opened, my big question has been, when can I walk to the Magic Kingdom? It's literally the thing I think about every single time I stay there. Like, I should be able to walk to the Magic Kingdom. And now, Jim, that is a reality.
Our buddy BioReconstruct, I think, was there the moment the barrier
He timed it all. He sent us the timings.
Yeah. I want to give them credit to the effect of, in theory, you can walk from the Magic Kingdom all the way to the ticket and transportation. Yeah, but the challenge then gets when you get in the weeds at the Polynesian Village, because they're really going to have to figure out some signage to get people.
Exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the other thing. So Bio apparently walked, I think his first walk was Grand Floridian to Magic Kingdom to time it. And then he went back and he timed it from different parts of the Poly to the Magic Kingdom. And then he went back again and said, okay, TTC to the Magic Kingdom. And apparently he got lost somewhere in the Poly, which whom among us has not got lost walking from the TTC to the Great Ceremonial House, right? I mean, I think BioReconstruct's point was, at night, this might actually be a challenge.
But at the same time, I think is a nod to your sort of dual citizenship. I love the little reference. It's like, well, if you're a New York walker, it's 13 minutes.
It is. We walk fast. Yeah.
Yeah. So
12 to 20 minutes, depending on per mile, depending on how you walk.
If you do a New Hampshire saunter, it's 2 weeks.
I'm excited to see it open. And remember, Jim, you and I did a show last year where we talked about how the Disney Corporation has an internal carbon tax that it levies on different business units, depending on how green or how much carbon their initiatives produce. And in this case, this is an example of the Walt Disney World, the Parks and Resorts division, getting a carbon credit because presumably when the walkway opens, it'll mean less reliance on the monorail, on boats, and on buses. Yeah, so this is one of those things where you get a little carbon credit for doing it.
In theory, one can walk from the International Gateway at Epcot all the way over to the studios. I wonder if Same situation if that was factored into the carbon footprint of the resort.
I'm thinking now that I want to do it, I want to connect all the resorts by a sidewalk. So could you go TTC to Wilderness Lodge? Because if you can go TTC to Wilderness Lodge, you can go Wilderness Lodge to Fort Wilderness.
Well, now you and I have walked from Fort Wilderness all the way into the campground. In fact, I remember we actually recorded that and decided that, at one point it's okay, this is where Buffalo Junction was going to be built and that sort of thing. So you can do it from Fort Wilderness to the campground. I don't think you can do it yet from the TTC to Fort Wilderness without.
The other thing you could do, you could go Contemporary to Wilderness Lodge to Fort Wilderness, if there's a trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Leave it to us. We can't celebrate this thing that took years to get done. We're immediately, what about the other? How about there? It's just like,
if you get to Golden Oak, you can get to Riverside, to Port Orleans.
There we go. The poor slob who took years of begging and pleading to finally get this walkway completed, and we can't give him 30 seconds of, wow, great achievement. It's like, okay, what about the other ones?
It is really, really good. My goal is Animal Kingdom and Magic Kingdom. By walking. All right.
That would be cool.
Speaking of updates, Jim, last week, Disney updated the status of several Epcot projects. So we know that Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Rewind vehicle testing is happening. Disney came out and said that the water screen platforms for Harmonious will be used during the day as fountains in World Showcase Lagoon. The Festival Center is now a festival area?
Well,
this is where it starts to get kind of nebulous. So the festival center itself, the 3-story structure, that's dead, right?
For now. Part of the reason it's off the table for now is that we are barreling down on the official start of the new version of the 50th anniversary, which will now start in October of 2021. And this was supposed to be in place. So if you're a corporate group or you're a wedding party or that sort of thing, you could book out the third floor for your private party, for your private function. But again, if it's the 50th anniversary, we need this space open to move tens of thousands of guests. Because again, we're going to have a vaccine by then, right? And people will have taken it, and we're no longer limited to 35% of capacity or that sort of thing. So it's to the notion of, look, we need this space open because tens of thousands of people have to move back and forth through it, making their way to Harmonious and then leaving the park. I'm told that that's 5 years down the line. We could have a conversation, but for right now, it's all about recovery. It's all trying to get the resort back to normalcy, to the previous capacity, and then maybe doing some cool stuff in the future.
And that makes sense. So I'm expecting, instead of Festival Center, I'm expecting basically a lawn with festival tents and stuff like that.
Yep.
Maybe some shaded seating, some outdoor seating, some shade.
And food carts. Don't forget about food carts. Some more outdoor kitchens, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm expecting. Yeah, fair enough. There was nothing in the announcement about the Play Pavilion that's replacing Wonders of Life.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, from the Imagineers who were working on that, they weren't entirely happy. Because remember, I don't know if you've seen the History of Disney Monorail book that came out earlier this fall, that they actually mentioned the monorail themed attraction that's supposed to be in that building. It's a turnkey, Len. It's ready to go, and it's just sort of like, right now, it is all about getting this park ready for the 50th. And they did their market survey work, and it's just like, from a guest interest point of view, Ratatouille is a priority, Guardians is a priority, but the thing is, because the Play Pavilion is really so amorphous, nobody knows what's in it, so it's like it's not really a priority, for guests right now. So it's like, all right, that can wait. So that's been mothballed before all of the other stuff gets done. I am told on the other side of Cosmic Rewind that it will become a priority again.
Right, because the Cosmic Rewind is going to draw crowds to that part of the park.
That's it exactly. That's it exactly. They will need the additional capacity on that side. So it's like, as Cosmic Rewind is getting ready to open, you will see more money, more time, more effort poured into the Play Pavilion, and they hope to have it open in 3 to 6 months after Cosmic Rewind.
That's an aggressive schedule. So I thought that they would do, and maybe they could do this all at once, but Cosmic Rewind, they've got to get food and bev fixed in Future World West, that area.
Oh yeah.
And then the Play Pavilion. So my sense is it would be, if I was doing the schedule, food and bev would either open right before, with, or right after Cosmic Rewind, and then the Play Pavilion.
When we're talking food and bev, we're talking about the stuff that's in the old Communicore area, correct?
Right. Yeah. So whatever is replacing Electric Umbrella, Mouse Gear will probably go back, but the Starbucks has to come back. Things like that, right? They gotta figure that out.
Now again, because we have a vaccine looming, Space 220 was having to deal with the issues of every indoor restaurant in the world right now in regard to social distance or physical distancing. And so the notion is like, oh, okay, so this problem might be solved by the time, so that again has picked up some speed and some heat. So I honestly expect Space 220. They do definitely want to have that up and running for October of next year for the 50th.
Okay.
They want to announce no later than summer of 2021 that they can begin taking reservations.
So. Oh, good. Well, that'll be good. That'll be good to see. Mm-hmm. Speaking of space, anything on the Spaceship Earth redo? That's kind of gone quiet as well.
And there's a reason, Len. It's just like...
In terms of money, we have no money.
That's exactly. The $900 million worth of capital investment that got paused. The thing with Spaceship Earth is it wasn't broken. They were just looking to plus it. They were just looking to finesse the story for the next generation. I mean, this wasn't going to be a massive revamp redo. It was changing it to highlighting storytelling. So you change your narration, you change a few show scenes. In this situation, it's like, you don't have to fix what ain't broke. Yeah. So 4 and 5 years down the line, we'll talk.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, fair enough. All right, Jim, let's go and do listener questions. We have a couple. The first one is from Kimmy R. What are you thinking early May will look like next year? We'll have a 1-year-old and are pregnant. Which resort would you recommend for fun, but not too much running around? I'd think the Magic Kingdom. I'm leaning towards the Contemporary, but my husband wants the Grand Floridian. But if it's going to be insane, we may just try to go earlier. P.S. I don't know what Jim looks like, but I think he should be the Prospector from Toy Story for next Halloween. Just a thought. That is exactly what Jim looks like.
Just this week, Sharon, the mom at Hoodlum House, actually reached out to say that on the most recent episode of The Mandalorian, The Siege, there was a character, Captain Carson Teva, X-Wing pilot, that she thought I looked like.
I've seen the episode. Yeah, it's actually not.
I'm just grateful she didn't say Porkins. But yeah, I could cop to looking like Stinky Pete from Toy Story 2. In fact, the name is probably entirely too appropriate, and maybe that's oversharing. So, all right, back to Kimmy's question. Yeah.
All right, so I do like both of those ideas, the Contemporary and the Grand Floridian. And the reason is convenience. When we took Hannah, our daughter, for the first time to Walt Disney World, we stayed at the Grand Floridian, not because we wanted anything fancy, but because it was one of the most convenient hotels if you needed to go back for a quick nap, right? And the nap was more for me than anyone else, but whatever. We'll gloss over that fact.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think the Grand Floridian is good. The Contemporary, both of those are now walking distance to the parks. They have really good dining, like the Grand Floridian. I would think in May more restaurants will be open. That would be my choice. The other one, if you're going to spend any time at all in Animal Kingdom, my other choice would be Animal Kingdom Lodge Jumbo House, again, for the dining. Problem with Animal Kingdom, A, it may not be open. Animal Kingdom Lodge might not be open, and B, the restaurants might not be open.
True.
So, yeah, I would say, Contemporary Grand Floridian. If you really liked Hollywood Studios and Epcot, I would pick Beach Club there. So those are my choices. But I think if you can get a good rate at the Contemporary, the Grand Floridian, those would be my two first choices.
I could back that up.
All right. Next question is from Thomas. He says, during your most recent Disney Dish podcast, I was amazed that your rapier wit glossed over the meta nature of elaborate Disney convention hotel portfolios that were produced and handed out to attendees at conventions that are held to highlight venues for people choosing where to hold other conventions. It reminds me of that scene in Austin Powers where Robert Wagner shows Dr. Evil a model of his U.S. holdings that included a miniature model of his factory that produced miniature models of factories. That is beautiful. I listened for both you and your and Jim's intelligent analysis of business decisions by the Walt Disney Corporation and the dry wit that relishes in the sometimes hidden absurdity of those decisions. As an aside, I've enjoyed the audio-only walk-arounds of the parks, but the ones with your commentary are gold. When you add Laurel's dry wit acting in synergy with yours during walk-arounds, it's priceless. I'm holding out hope for a Disney Dish Bandcamp exclusive show that's simply audio of Len and Laurel at the Testa family Thanksgiving dinner If that doesn't happen in 2020, you can give the exact same excuse that Disney's provided all year. Out of an abundance of caution, we have decided not to wiretap our family this Schmurz Day. Best wishes and a happy and safe holiday season to you and your family. Yeah. So, the other question that comes out, and I'm often asked this when I'm in the parks, and the question goes something like this: what's it like to be the fourth most popular person on your two-man show, Len? In general, it's not bad. I try not to think of it exactly that way, but I'm absolutely fine with it, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think you and I have both sort of settled into the hard truth of our lives that, when it comes to the brains of the operation, you and I automatically default to either Laurel and Nancy. Just sort of like, hang on, let me check with Nancy to find out what my opinion is.
For me, it was, I woke up one day and I realized I am neither the prettiest, funniest, or smartest person in this relationship, and I'm okay with it. I can lift really heavy things, and that's what I bring here, and that's great.
In my own case, really, it's Nancy, and then it's the two cats, and again, I'm the one who scoops the poop. So clearly, we know, where I am in the batting order.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're somewhere on the podium, right? Top three, maybe a participation medal. That's good.
There we go. He tried. So
he gave his best. He really did what he could.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Jim tells us about how the retheming of Dixie Landings might indicate how Disney's going to update Splash Mountain. We'll be right back.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana.
Breathe deep. Imagine your legs more limber in Duluth Trading Double Flex Denim. Envision euphorically squatting for that can of suds, bending for your toolbox in a state of bliss, lunging for your laser level on a whole new level. Relax and allow the flex to fill you with ability. Find your inner flex in Double Flex Denim only at Duluth Trading.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. New players, new games, new rules. Squid Game, The Challenge returns for a gripping second season. 456 contestants from all walks of life, competing in the ultimate test of strategy, alliances, and endurance. For a life-changing prize of $4.56 million. With stakes this high, why make friends when you can make millions? Watch Squid Game, The Challenge Season 2, only on Netflix November 4th.
Jim, when we left off talking about Dixie Landings and Splash Mountain, we had just opened phase 1 and phase 2 of the resort, right?
Yeah. What's interesting about Port Orleans and Dixie Landings is in this same window of time is when the original DVC was built, now Old Key West.
Oh, right, yeah.
So we had this kind of mega resort that paid tribute to the South. We had an area that paid tribute to the very tip of Florida and Old Key West. We had Louisiana's urban center with Port Orleans. We had the bayous of southern Louisiana with Alligator Bayou, that section of Dixie Landings. And finally, the Grand Manor houses of Georgia in the Magnolia Bend. If you factor in the number of visitors who go to Walt Disney World who live east of the Mississippi, or for that matter, the number of folks who live south of the Mason-Dixon line who come to the resort every 3.5 years or so, it made sense to have an area in the park that really sort of made Southerners comfortable, paid tribute to their world. However, if you talk with the folks at Central Reservation Office, which I want to say that name has changed over the years, Len. Now it's Reservation Assistance or the Help Center? Does that sound right?
Yeah, it's assistance now.
Okay, all right. Okay. So the folks over at Central Reservation Office, they began to talk about, after Dixie Landings opened in 92 or thereabouts, they'd get an African-American person on the phone who would be looking to come to Walt Disney World, and they'd launch into the spiel and they'd find their price point and they'd make a suggestion about Dixie landings. And it was not a no, but it was an oh hell no. It was just one of these things where it's like, okay, we maybe need to finesse our spiel because of this. And remember, in the same window of time, we're heading into the middle 90s, and suddenly we have Disney's The Lion King, which makes buku bucks. And this is a film animated feature that celebrates African culture and, has a strong African-American vocal cast. And just 3 years later, The Lion King opens on Broadway in November of 97. And Julie Taymor really leans into African-American heritage and really makes the show a celebration. And here's this torrent of money that is pouring into the Walt Disney Company for a celebration of African-American culture. And the question was like, okay, maybe this Dixie Landings thing is something we should perhaps take a look at. And Disney in the past has taken the concerns of its African-American guests into account. In fact, Len, I think we've talked previously in the show, there used to be this vignette in It's a Small World. If you go to YouTube right now and tee up the special that Disney put on The Wonderful World of Color back in May of 1964, their show Disney Goes to the Fair, at approximately the 30-minute mark in this show, you can see it's a Mark Davis designed vignette. It's a quartet of little black tribesmen in the African section of the attraction. And they're all standing around this laughing hyena. And the thing is, the little boys find the African hyena so amusing that they're giggling along with it. And so this was in the version of the ride for the 1964-1965 World's Fair. When the attraction moved to Disneyland in May of 66, it's still in there. It also gets put in the clones that are built for the Magic Kingdom, October of 71, and even in Tokyo's version of A Small World, which opens in April of 83. But it's the mid-80s that Disney gets this note from a rather irate African-American woman who just says that she was offended as she was on Small World to see little African boys in such close proximity to a hyena, which, according to this woman, was, would never happen in real life because hyenas are filthy, vicious creatures, which, okay, so if you watch The Lion King and you got Shenzhe, Banzai, and Ed, okay, I get how you could think that. Whereas anybody who's actually watched the Magic of Disney Animal Kingdom over at Disney Plus knows that Scooter and Zawadi, the two hyenas who live at that theme park, they may not be the best smelling animals, but according to their caretakers, they're very sweet, highly intelligent creatures. Anyway, back to this concerned African-American mom and her irate letter, which Disney back in the 80s took very seriously, so much that Disney actually goes into It's a Small World and restages this Mark Davis designed vignette. So rather than having a quartet of young tribesmen giggling along with a hyena in the African section, it's now just a pair of hyenas laughing together by themselves. So the four little black boys that were previously there are removed entirely. And to Disney's credit, they didn't just change it in the Disneyland version. They did it at Disney World. They did it at Tokyo. And in fact, they reached out to the team that was working at that time on the Euro Disney version of Small World and made sure that the young tribesmen laughing with the hyena scene got cut there. But that said, it's important to stress here, there's kind of a generational thing going on here that the older Disney execs and Imagineers didn't necessarily view this situation with the same urgency as, say, the younger staffers did. And when I say that, I honestly mean no disrespect to Dick Nunis, who worked for the Disney Company for 44 years and accomplished many great things during his tenure during the Mouse House. But it's honestly, Len, not a coincidence that when Dick retired as chairman of Walt Disney Attractions in May of 1999, it was only then that the Let's Rebrand Disney's Dixie Landings Resort effort really began to pick up steam, which is perfectly understandable. Remember from the previous installments of the series, it was Dick himself who proposed the Lake Buena Vista New Orleans Square project that in turn led to Dixie Landings. And supposedly Dick, when they brought it to him, and it's like, this isn't a thing. Why would we change this? But that's it. In 1999, Len, the black population in the United States numbered 35 million people. That's 12.8% of the total population. And when you have a resort that has 2,048 rooms, which, remember, we're talking about Dixie Landings with Alligator Bayou and Magnolia Bend. And the name alone of your resort is what upsets an eighth of the total U.S. population.
It's not great for your numbers. It's not great for a number of reasons, but I mean, just from a financial perspective, you don't alienate,
an eighth of your possible guests. So again, Dick retires in May of 1999. And at this point, Disney puts together a spreadsheet that shows, okay, this is what it's going to cost to rename and rebrand Dixie Landings versus this is how much profit this Disney World resort would make if it were able to book every single on-site room every day of the year. Because that was the thing that was kind of making Disney crazy, is that here was a moderate. And, the Caribbean Beach Resort would sell out every night. And Port Orleans side would sell out every night. And there was this weird, persistent softness when it came to Alligator Bayou and Magnolia Bend that they could never quite seal the deal. They could never get to 100%.
Yeah, I'd say it's not my favorite resort for the antebellum theming. It's the same reason why I don't think there should be statues of Robert E. Lee. He committed treason. Let's call it what it is. It's okay.
I know. But what they did is they paid particularly close attention to occupancy levels at Dixie Landings during the Millennium Celebration, which ran from October 1st, 1999 through January 1st, 2001. 15-month-long celebration. The resort did really, really well. But again, same thing. Noticeable softness at Dixie Landings. They rarely, if ever, totally sold out all 2,048 rooms. This is why, February of 2001, Disney officially greenlights the Dixie Landings renaming rebranding project. Starting in March of that year, they began changing the signage around this 320-acre parcel. They also began walking out the idea that Port Orleans and Dixie Landings would now be this one large regionally themed resort. They would leave out conveniently which region it was themed around. It's it's regionally themed. Just don't ask which region.
The Northern Hemisphere.
There we go. All right, so now it's a 3,056-room resort.
Yeah.
April 1st, 2001, southern half of Port Orleans Resort now becomes known as the French Quarter. Northern half becomes known as Riverside. The poor staffers at Central Reservation at this point, they're literally taken in for shock training to the effect of, every time you said Dixie Landings, they gave you a shock. It's like, no. It's French Quarter and Riverside. We don't say the Dixie Landings word anymore. And, the sad part of the story, though, Len, is they are barely 6 months into this branding renaming effort when 9/11 happens. And now people are terrified to get on planes. So demand for rooms on property falls through the floor. July, November that same year, French Quarter completely closes down. Riverside operation, which again still has 2,048 rooms available for booking, mothballs 1,700 of those rooms. Yeah.
So during this closure, this was the first on-site research project I ever did at a Disney resort for the unofficial guide.
You mentioned that. Yeah.
So Bob and I are staying over at Old Key West, and we have bicycles, to sort of get around all the different resorts because they're huge and stuff. So he's like, "Oh, go check out French Quarter to see how they're refurbishing the rooms." Because if I recall correctly, when they closed the resort, they used that time to refurbish the rooms as well.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is it was a soft goods redo.
Yeah, soft goods. Yeah.
So, but anyway, continue.
So Bob says, go over there and see if you can go see the room. So I do a sort of like a casual sort of bike around the resort, and I was like, well, they put up these huge garden planters. I mean, 4 feet tall with trees that go up another 12 feet, and they span the entire walkway. I mean, they got to be like 4 feet deep and 16 feet tall, and they're 20 feet wide. Just massive things that you have to move with like a forklift or a crane or something. So I go back to Bob and I'm like, yeah, they've got these planters on the walkway so that you can't walk on the walkway. And he paused for a second and he said, "Can you walk around them?" Right? Like don't if there's a fence, don't hop the fence, right? But if there's a walkway, so I did, and that was and I got to see the new refurbishments, and I think we put it in that year's guide because I think we were doing research in the spring of 2002 for the summer of 2002, and that's how we did it, and that was my introduction to is there offense or is there not offense sort of philosophy for the unofficial guide.
Yeah, Len, there was a time that, I also interpreted the phrase cast members only as, with the exception of Jim Hill.
Certainly they don't mean me in that. And I will say, when I was younger, our Disney PR person got more than one phone call from Disney security saying, who is this guy and why is he traipsing around, property? All right. And thankfully they all understood, it's stuff to do. So.
Absolutely. And more to the point, that's all in the distant past, folks. Len and I behave ourselves these days.
It's completely different these days. Yeah.
There we go. Okay. So it's interesting you bring up the Port Orleans redo because demand remained soft, not only into 2002, but also to 2003. So.
Oh, yeah. It was really 2005.
Oh, yeah. Because they shut down the entire French Quarter section again in May of 2003, and it stayed shuttered till March of 2004. Though, again, they used that time to renovate and refresh all 1,008 rooms on this side of the resort.
Oh, that's right. This was the period late 2001 to 2005-ish was the period of we're just going to refurbish entire resorts at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember this. What was it? Was it Caribbean Beach?
Oh, yes. Yes. We had the redos that followed after French Quarter reopened. Then the Southern Team Mansions at Magnolia Bend shuttered for 6 months for same sort of renovation refresh.
But thousands of rooms at a time, right?
Thousands of rooms. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. By May of 2005, we're now at the start of the happiest homecoming on Earth, that 18-month-long celebration of the creation of the Disney theme park. So enough demand for on-property rooms that Disney no longer has to play with this shell game of on-site capacity. The very next time that we see redos over at Port Orleans, French Quarter, and Riverside is the year after Princess and the Frog come out. Princess Frog comes in theaters December of 2009. November of 2010, this is when the Imagineers begin refreshing rooms so they include little nods to Tiana, Naveen, Louis, and Ray.
In French Quarter.
In the French Quarter.
Because there were princess rooms in Riverside, right?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
This was part of a whole program. You just talked about Caribbean Beach. Remember how they did first the Nemo themed rooms and then they did the pirate themed rooms. And in fact, isn't Polynesian Village, as part of its redo, going to be doing some Moana themed rooms? Or
the cash part of the Poly, I believe, is doing a Moana retheming, and I believe they're doing a hard goods refurbishment because if you go to Cast Connection, the cast member store in Walt Disney World, there's a ton of Polynesian room furniture available now. So I think they're doing hard goods there as well.
Yeah, I think Derek Bergen was just mentioning that he scored a lamp. So from the Poly.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Which I'm sure he paid for.
I was looking at desks. All right, yeah.
But it's now with these little touches from Princess and the Frog, where suddenly for the African American community, especially the Port Orleans French Quarter, suddenly becomes not necessarily the top resort for them, but it's in the top 5.
Really?
Yeah. That it's just sort of like, ooh, my daughter and I, went to the resort and we discovered these little Princess and the Frog touches in the room. We loved it and we want to go back. According to folks I've spoken with Imagineering, as part of the decision about whether or not to redo Splash Mountain to a Princess and the Frog based theming, they actually pulled the research from not only guest comments at Port Orleans French Quarter, but also what they were hearing from the Central Reservation Office, the folks that said, I want to go back there because my daughter loves Princess and the Frog, and that resort has Princess and the Frog stuff.
Oh, fantastic.
Which brings us to what Josh DeMauro, in his speech just last week at the Attractions Expo at IAAPA, he talked about how the Splash Mountain transformation into a Princess and the Frog themed ride is now being expedited. This is the exact quote, Len, from November 16th. The cultural change of the company has already begun. The company has begun deepening its relationship with historically Black colleges and universities to create a stronger pipeline to careers in finance, human resources, legal, communications, production, and technology.
So that's interesting because I knew about this because 2 people contacted me when Disney announced this. Mm-hmm. One of them was someone in Disney who knew that I went to an historically Black college, North Carolina A&T State University. The other one was an alumnus of mine at North Carolina A&T State University who said, hey, we're doing something with Disney in finance. Did you know about this? And I was like, no, I didn't. But Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. So I think it's A&T, Howard,
There we go. Yeah.
Florida A&M, the world's greatest marching band, and there's one more, and I can't remember what it is.
It's a very specific targeted effort with the idea of, again, those very specific programs about human resources and financing and the like.
Hampton is the other one.
There we
And
go.
it was okay.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
So Josh goes on to say, we believe that truly inclusive environments are critical to fostering ideas from all people to help us grow, innovate, and create the best stories possible. More information about Disney's backstage commitment to inclusivity will be rolled out in the next few months, but guest-facing changes like the reimagining of Splash Mountain have been expedited to ensure that all who visit the company's parks do feel welcome as well.
Okay, so when we say expedited, what do we mean? We're not talking 2021, right?
So let's start right off the bat by mentioning that, when we're talking about the Splash Mountain redo, we're not talking about Disneyland right now, because it's like, how can you...
It's not even open, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, right now it seems like the earliest the park is going to open is spring of next year. On the other hand, Walt Disney World, that's supposedly the first Splash Mountain to be reimagined. Toward the end of 2022, as the resort is nearing the end of its year-long 50th anniversary celebration, they'll announce at that time that Splash Mountain at the Magic Kingdom will be closing in 2023 for its Princess and the Frog themed reimagining, which will take at least a year to do, Len. I've also heard as long as 18 months.
That's okay. So I was on I was on Splash Mountain a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
And I think I've said before on the show, Splash Mountain is my favorite Walt Disney World ride. It's very long. It's got a catchy song. It's got great show sets. They finally fixed the jumping water scene in the Laughing Place, which had been periodically broken or more broken than not since the park reopened. But going through it, and I'm like, this is a great ride. But I specifically rode an extra time, one more time, just to go through and say, okay, if they redo this as Princess and the Frog, what would I miss? And I got to the end of it. I went through all the show scenes. I got to the end of it. I'm like, you know what? I'm okay with it now. I love the current ride. It will always have a cherished part in my memory. But if they did something completely new with this, I'm ready for it now. So I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to it.
That's great to hear, because the weird thing is, at least when it comes to Orlando, there is kind of two schools of thought about what they should do here.
Sell everything off as pins.
Well, okay.
You know what's going to happen.
That is one of the considerations involved here, Len, that they want a wall of commemorative merch. If you remember the stuff that was done for the close of the Great Movie Ride, the T-shirts, the mugs, that sort of thing, that's just a tenth of what they're planning for Splash Mountain.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it'll be tons of stuff.
Now, the timeline was explained to me is that, for example, they announce in, say, October of 2022, and there's one plan where, they allow guests through the holiday season and they shutter in early January. There's another version where it's like, well, we really need to give people more time than that. So the notion is they announce in October and keep the ride open till April of 2023. So there's a full 6-month span for people to get in there.
Doesn't it normally do a refurbishment early in the year, like after the January crowds leave? So they would just defer that and be like, we're going to close it anyway, let it run for a few more months?
I was just looking at the refurbishment schedule for Universal Florida, and in the January-March timeframe, they shutter Jurassic River Ride. They shutter
it's cold. Nobody wants to do river rides,
even Biltrat barges. So no, you're right. But at the same time, the fact that it's cold, also it's a perfect time to, the mechanics that power a water ride and, all of the hard stuff, so to speak. And another thing that I did hear from a friend of the show at Imagineering, to the effect of the Oriental Land Company has actually finally come around to this idea as well. They will entertain the idea that Tokyo Disneyland's version of Splash Mountain could be redone. Because, face it, there's some great commonalities between the Walt Disney World version of Splash and the Tokyo version of Splash. But the Oriental Land Companies have flat out told Disney, it's like, A, we want to see the finished product at Walt Disney World before we commit. And B, we want to see what the merch sales are for the Princess and the Frog stuff in the post-show. that's where things stand as of today. And I apologize that we can't, I don't have much of anything to share about the Disneyland timetable. But again, it's hard to talk about until that park reopens. So
yeah, we just don't know.
Yep.
Fantastic. All right, folks, that's going to do it for the Disney Dish show today. Please head on over to disneydish.bandcamp.com, where you'll find exclusive shows never before heard on iTunes, including new in-park audio in that special series on Epcot storytelling. You can find more of Jim at jimhillmedia.com and more of me, Len, at touringplans.com. On next week's show, we start on Disney-related Christmas stories. And we're produced fabulously by Aaron Adams, who'll be singing Storms and I Don't Want to Know, which have never been performed live. And he's open to a duet of Landslide if Billy Corgan shows up at Tusk, a tribute to Fleetwood Mac. One night only, 7 p.m. on Friday, December 18th at the Count Basie Center for the Arts in beautiful downtown Red Bank, New Jersey. While Aaron's doing that, please go on to iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim, this is Len. We will see you on the next show.